Hello, and welcome to Deadly Paranormal Podcast. I'm your host, Tony Cotton-Gim. In this podcast, I am going to be talking about the paranormal, ghosts, legends, folklore, and supernatural creatures. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show, and thank you for listening. In tonight's episode, I would like to take you to the town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia. This town is said to have a bipedal, humanoid, moth-like creature with glowing eyes that they have lovingly dubbed Mothman. The creature has risen from local appearances to the national stage as a leader in the cryptid revival of the last 20 years. Our story begins on November 12th, 1966, in Clinton, West Virginia. A group of grave diggers working in a cemetery spotted something strange. They glanced up from their work as something huge soared over their heads. It was a massive figure that was moving rapidly from tree to tree. This was the first reported sighting of what would become known as the Mothman, an elusive creature that remains as mysterious as it was on the night that a few frightened witnesses first laid their eyes on it. It was here on November 15th, 1966, that Mothman emerged from the depths of hell. Roger and Linda Scarberry and Steve and Mary Mallett were driving together on Route 62 near the abandoned National Guard Armory building and power plant when they saw a menacing figure standing 6 to 7 feet tall in the headlights. Giant eyes shone bright red. Panic set in. Roger, the car's driver, sped away towards town, but the creature followed them. According to the first eyewitness accounts, the thing rose up like a helicopter. Though they said it was a clumsy runner as they saw it at the power plant, it excelled in gliding, easily keeping pace, even as the car reached 100 miles per hour. This creature's debut ruffled the town's feathers, making for an unsure headline the next day in Point Pleasant's registry. Couples see man-size bird, creature, something. The stereotypical inclination for a small town to form an angry mob heightened. Rather than raising pitchforks and torches, for several nights, curiosity set in about the initial contact, and according to written reports, Mothman would be responsible for a host of strange sightings and events in Point Pleasant and the surrounding areas. Seen lurking outside homes, chasing cars, and stealing pet dogs. However, the sightings abruptly stopped in December 1967 after horrific tragedy in Point Pleasant. The Silver Bridge, which carried U.S. Route 35 over the Ohio River, collapsed under the weight of heavy rush hour traffic, killing 46 people. Was it just a coincidence? On December 15th, 1967, just over a year after the first Mothman sighting, the traffic was bad on the Silver Bridge. The bridge was originally built in 1928 to connect Point Pleasant, West Virginia, to Gallipolis, Ohio. The bridge was packed with cars. This placed a strain on the bridge, which had been built in a time when cars were lighter. The Model T had weighed just 1,500 pounds. And in 1967, the average car was 4,000 pounds. The bridge's engineers hadn't been particularly imaginative, nor had they been especially cautious. While creating this structure, the bridge's design featured very little redundancy, meaning that if one part failed, there was almost nothing in place to prevent the other parts from falling as well. And on that cold December day, that was exactly what happened. Without warning, a single eye-bar near the top of the bridge on the Ohio side cracked. The chain snapped, and the bridge, its careful equilibrium disturbed, fell to pieces, plunging cars and pedestrians into the icy water of the Ohio River below. 46 people died, either by drowning or being crushed by the wreckage. Later attributed to a fault suspension chain, the collapse did not stop the conspiracy theories from spreading. Many people suggested that the sightings were bad omens about the impending bridge collapse. The creature had laid low since the deadly collapse of the Silver Bridge in December 1967. Many saw no connection in an alleged sighting just before the collapse, while some viewed Mothman as a sinister harbinger of doom. Since then, Mothman seems to have kept to himself until recently. In 2019, accounts of a flying moth creature in Chicago stoked the paranormal creature craze. But as he makes national news once again, an NPR inquiry was entitled, "The Case of the Chicago Mothman." Lovers of the unknown and the unsustained should remember exactly where his roots lie, and where a 12-foot tall statue of his likeness by Bob Roach stands. As for sightings of the actual Mothman, they've mostly declined since the late 1960s, but ever so often, a sighting emerges. In 2016, a man who just moved to Point Pleasant spotted a mysterious creature jumping from tree to tree. He claimed to local reporters that he was unaware of the local legend of the Mothman until he allegedly spotted the beast himself. Whether these sightings are real or not, the Mothman can still be seen in Point Pleasant today in the form of a historical museum and also in the form of a 12-foot tall chrome-polished statue, complete with massive steel wings and ruby red eyes. Furthermore, a festival commemorating the Mothman visits has taken place annually for years, a fun celebration that attracts locals and tourists alike. Every September, the festivities celebrate one of the America's strangest and local legends that still has people scratching their heads to this day. The caverns, mountains, and hollers of West Virginia are no stereotype. They house intriguing characters, made resin in storytelling and supernatural American folklore. And true or not, one can unearth rich meanings in cryptids that tempt us to tell their tales. Our fears feed this process too. When a child sits cross-legged on the ground to hear the reasons that they should never go into an abandoned power plant, what better way to bring the point home than a giant flying moth creature? So, what are your thoughts on Mothman? Let me know in the comments below. And thank you for listening.